Ready? Dad? Test, 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 test. Test, 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 test. Test, 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 test. Test, 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 test. Test, 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 test. 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 Do you still need me to talk in it? Stand up straight.
Ready to go?
Shortly.
I just need about a minute. I'll start it for you. One, two, 1, 2, 1, 2. You got it? Did you get a mic check on it, Mark? Ready to go, Adam? It's all yours, buddy.
Good to go? Good evening. We're going to go ahead and get started. Hello, my name is Adam Wolf. I am the Communications Manager for Navajo County. I want to thank you all for coming tonight. Hopefully we'll be able to answer your questions or address your concerns. But we do ask that you please hold them until everyone has had a chance to speak. Our speakers do include Mayor Greg Smith. We have 2 members of the incident management team. We also have representatives from Pine Top Fire as well as Timber Mesa Fire, Pine Top Lakeside Police, and our own Navajo County Emergency Management. So hopefully we'll be able to give you a good picture of what's going on, and you'll leave here with a better understanding of the situation. So with that, we'll just bring up Mayor Greg Smith.
Thank you, Adam. Good evening, and thank you all for coming out tonight. As you all know, this fire started last Wednesday, the Cedar fire. It's been an amazing coordination right from the beginning. Actually started with the White Mountain Apache Tribe and VIA Forestry, then turned over to our U.S. Forest Service and a Type 1 team. From the beginning, there were plans, if we did come to an evacuation point, working with the county, Shoal Police, the tribe, Pine Top Lakeside. It's all been mapped out from the very beginning how it would be handled if there was an evacuation, how people would be notified. Luckily, we're just still in a pre-evac state. Just so everyone knows, Navajo County has a website, Ready Navajo County. There's also 311info.net. If you want to pick these up on the way out tonight, Mary Springer, who is with the county, will get these processed immediately so that you can find out everything that we know on a daily basis. There's also these little wristbands that can have the same information on them. In a minute, you're going to get a very comprehensive update on the fire that's fresh from today, right from the Forest Service. So with that, thank you. Just know that we're here for you. You can access any of these sites on links with the town of Pine Top Lakeside or the police department. And just thank you for your patience, and we'll get through this together. And just keep praying for those firefighters and our law enforcement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Smith. Next, we'll have the incident commander from the Southwest Incident Management Team, John Pearson.
Well, usually I start out the morning briefing and the evening briefing, and this is evening, and I say good evening. And what do? You're supposed to say good evening back to me. So I appreciate that very much. You know, just a little slight clarification here on the Southwest Area Interagency Incident Management Team. You know, it consists of many folks across as far as New York, of our team members, and from the New York Fire Department, Phoenix Fire Department, the Bureau of Land Management, Mr. Craig here from San Juan County. So it's a collective group of multiple interagency or agencies across the nation. So, you know, myself, I am from the Forest Service, but the team is made up of many different agencies. So, like, just a slight clarification on that. So what I'd like to do this evening is just give you a short brief on how we got here and why we're here and what we're doing, and then I'll turn that over to Craig Doherty, our operations section chief, who is he's in the planning phases of that, but he has direct contact to those folks that are on the ground as I wander around and communicate with folks and coordinate and what have you. So he has that best information, and that's how I like to run things in regards to having the best information to get that out to our communities, cooperators, and stakeholders and such. As you all know, this thing was a emerging event on the 15th of June. The Southwest Area Team 2 I was contacted on probably around 3 p.m. on the 15th, and we began sending folks over here to help out the Fort Apache and tribal members that were initially attacking this fire, and then also, you know, they immediately ordered a Type 3 organization that was in place, and we embedded some of our operational folks with them to assist until we could meet with the agency administrator from Fort Apache to, get my direction in terms of what we were here to do and the purpose of us being here. I have to commend that first, 24, 36 hours of engagement by those folks, because they truly set us up for success, especially on the corridor along Highway 60 and turning the corner there on the north end of the fire. They did an outstanding job, and real quickly, I would appreciate a recognition for that group. So with that, we took command of the fire on the 16th at 6 p.m. and we've been actively engaged from there on till this minute, with engagement still occurring. Yesterday, I'll jump into yesterday. That was a significant event that we truly did anticipate a bad day yesterday, just based on yesterday was one of the hottest times, and probably the hottest times this summer for the Southwest in Arizona and New Mexico. I think there was records of high temperatures broke, on the south end of the fire, 103 degrees. Up here in Show Low, I think I saw a temperature in my truck around 96 degrees, and that was very, very, very hot. Very, very dry air in the atmosphere. It just is cooking the fuels out there. But we knew that was happening. So a little bit, yesterday was a big day. We started off the morning with about 13,000 acres of burn area. We finished up yesterday evening around 11 o'clock with about 26,000 acres. So it doubled in size in a matter of a 12 to 14 hour period, and continued burning into the night last night with active fire till about 2:30. So a little bit, what we got on hand, we've had very good success in getting our, resources that we've asked for. We've had great cooperation within the affected communities, and I certainly, one of my goals is to be transparent with, from a team perspective of what we are doing out here with this incident. I want everybody to keep in mind, though, that we still have a long way to go. Be patient, be ready for the unexpected. That's what I preach to the folks, as well as our operation. That is just a common understanding, expecting unexpected. So basically, we've got about 770 folks engaged with the incident right now. That consists of 21 crews made up of Type 1, Type 2, or Type 1 being hotshot crews, Type 2 IA crews, which are initial attack crews, and then our Type 2 crews from the local area and general area in the Southwest. In addition, we got 7 helicopters. That's ranges from the sky cranes, or the Chinooks that you see flying in the air, to Hueys, to the light jet Ranger A-Star, B-A-Star, or B-Star, A-Star. I'm not too good at that mnemonics on them, but so we got 7 of those. 2 of them are primarily dedicated for that unexpected event of another initial attack fire, but they are also wrapped into our organization. In addition, we got 7 dozers currently assigned to the fire, which that equates to about 770 people that are actively engaged with this, from operationally to logistically, finance, a whole gamut. The city has been built. So that's where we're at. With further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Craig Doherty to give us a detailed operational briefing of what has occurred today, what our plans are tonight, and what we're looking to here in the future. So thank you very much, and I'll introduce Craig.
Good evening. We're glad to see a big crowd here tonight. Information is really important for our team, as far as transferring our knowledge of what's going on out there to you, the public. Obviously, you're concerned. My day job, I'm a fire chief with San Juan County Fire Department, like John just said, back in northwest New Mexico. When we're called as a team, we come out and try to help the communities that are affected. made up of folks from all over, so I'm glad I'm here to help, and I'll try my best to explain the situation. It's very dynamic out there, obviously. Like John said yesterday, was a very interesting day for our folks on the ground. When you have a fire double in size like that, it's very challenging. It's also demoralizing to the troops that have worked really hard in those areas to try to hold that fire and then to lose it and to see it march like it did yesterday. So with that, I think they're going to bring the lights down so I don't get a sunburn up here. And I'll try to use my laser pointer and we'll kind of talk through this, and I'll do my best to explain this. So excuse me for turning my back to the audience. I know that's not good, but I've got to look at the map too. So we'll start here. Can you guys hear me? Okay, I hear some yeses and some no's, so let me slip over this way. I'll see if I can do this without getting a crick in my neck. Okay, so we'll start up here at the upper end of the fire, and if you can see this, this is DIVA, so that's Division Alpha. So we break the fire up. That's how we kind of break that fire into manageable sections so that we can have a span of control with our troops. Each division has a commander out there, a division supervisor is what we call them, that manage the folks on the ground in that area. So the main fire from the first day was in this general area, and if you can, Steve, if you'll flip over to that progression map, you guys can kind of see how this fire progressed. And Steve's going to be a techno whiz here for me for a second, and maybe I caught him by surprise. So that first day, the fire made a push of about 5,000 acres. So you can see that's this darker green shade right here. There he goes. So thanks, Steve. This is that darker green area. So immediately our focus, when our team took the fire on Thursday, we were trying to stop that progression to the north because the winds were out of the southwest, so coming from the bottom of the screen going to this upper part of the screen. So we got in here, this is the 65 road and to the 41 road, and really tried to stop that progression. You're going to see this green strip right here. This is where we actually did a burnout. That burnout is a holding tactic that we utilize, actually fighting fire with fire. I know to a layperson that may sound like craziness. Why are we putting more fire on the ground? But it's actually a tool that we've used for many years in the business. So we put the fire on the ground in our controlled circumstances to take that fuel away from the fire and increase the width of our line, which is that road. So that was successful. We had a great holding there. The next day the fire grew into this area, and then the next day into this area. Our next plan, this right here is Fox Saddle. We were working our way down this way, and about 2:30 in the morning we were doing burnout operations, and we had the wind start coming out of the north, going from the top of the screen basically to the bottom of the screen. Those winds were supposed to be light winds night before last, and they were blowing about 22 miles an hour. So our folks were doing all they could to hold what we had right in here. We were bringing fire down this line right here. They got a spot in here, about 120 acres, that they couldn't pick up at 2:30 in the morning. For those of you that have any idea of how fires burn, 2:30 in the morning is when the fires are supposed to be burning their least active. We had 2 hotshot crews immediately on that spot and engines on that spot, and they were unable to catch that. At that same time, the main fire was kind of lost across here. It's kind of hard to see, but there's orange right in here and red. That red, that main fire that was the bottom of the fire that we were still trying to get around, then began marching south. And it marched a long ways. So that was our day yesterday. We lost all this country here, marching south. Our big concern at that point yesterday became Cedar Creek, which is right down about right here. And we were somewhat concerned about Carrizo, which is over here. And then there's several, quite a bit of sensitive areas in here for the tribe, cultural areas, and naturally, our natural areas of significance. So today we've been focusing on trying to come up with a new plan, if you will. When you have a fire march like that, it kind of takes all the plans you had in in the hopper and throws them out, and you start over. So see if you can go back to the bigger map there. That way I can kind of go on around this. So as we talked about, as I was talking, Division Alpha there is at the top. We've had a lot of good success in there through the week. That's where you started seeing some containment lines show up on the map. The black on the map is containment. A lot of people get hung up on containment. Containment is just a number that we use to kind of show the progress. And unfortunately, through the years, through the media, containment has become a big number of, okay, then the fire's looking good. It's 40% contained, and everybody says, oh, we're in good shape. Well, there's 60% of that fire that's not contained. And that's some of the reason that you guys are still in a pre-evac around, because there's still a lot of fire on the landscape out here, and things are still in a very dynamic situation. So we want to just make sure that folks understand that we don't want to be alarmists, but there's still a lot of potential out here on this landscape. And the fire behavior that we saw starting at 2:30 in the morning yesterday and through the day yesterday is a good indicator of that. So that containment line goes on around here to Division Bravo. This is along Highway 60. This is Highway 60 right here. For those of you that can't read that, I'm joking, I can't read it either. But I've looked at this map so much I can sleep and actually see this. So Highway 60 runs right here. Again, the 41 road comes in here. It actually makes a loop. This right here, this little light blue area here, if you can see this, is actually called the Playground Fire. That was a fire that burned last August. Some of you might have remembered it in 2015. So that area right there has been robbed of fuel. That fire took some fuel away. So that's actually a control feature, what we're going to use to help slow this fire down, or we hope to slow this fire down. So after the fire pushed down here yesterday into this long finger to the south here, we put troops in here today, and we're scouting all this country in down through here. This road right here is the 33 road that comes into the bottom of the Playground Fire. We had some folks in here last night. So we've got the Playground Fire right here, and then we had done this burnout operation, so we had this corner secured. A real concern today is this is a drainage right here, the upper part of West Cedar. We're very concerned today that this was going to blow out West Cedar here because of the topography. Again, give you guys a little basic fire behavior. Fire likes to run uphill faster than going downhill. It's one of the few things that defies gravity. So we're very concerned that fire was going to get ahead of steam and blow through here and possibly blow through here in this pinch point here, and that's Fott Saddle. So we got in there last night with our crews. We've been working crews 24 hours a day. We've got 2 shifts running. So we've got a night shift and a day shift. Our night shift's actually coming on the clock right now. I'm going to be working all night. The night shift came in here and they burned out this road here, and they built some depth into this corner right here. So unfortunately this map doesn't show this. This map is a IR flight. We have a plane that comes out of Boise, Idaho and flies all the fires in the United States, and they give us an infrared map. So this map was flown at 10 o'clock last night. This is where the perimeter was at 10 o'clock. Obviously a lot has changed since 10 o'clock last night. So this has got fire, this has got depth built into it now. It's blackened. So that fire, we feel a lot more comfortable about it. If it makes a push up into this canyon, that it's not going to spot over. And what I mean by spot is when these fires get going, they start throwing embers out in front of themselves and start new fires. Very challenging for us when we're fighting fires. The most that we've seen on this fire, yesterday we had a spot that threw out 3/4 of a mile. So you can imagine if you're working on a road, you think you've got this thing, and now all of a sudden 3/4 of a mile down the road that you can't even see, a helicopter calls and says you got a spot fire down there. So very challenging. So what we want to do is get enough depth built in this that it doesn't throw a spot out of here into what we have as Division Zulu. Division Z right here is working this country in here. They've got contingency lines built. We've gone in there, we've thinned the fuels out. I must say, from a team's perspective, coming into a community that's been proactive in managing their fuels and taking care of their fire-wise situations makes our job a whole lot easier. It makes the fire department's job a whole lot easier. So there's a lot of fuels work that's been done right down here in the forest by the White Mountain Apache Tribe through the BIA Fort Apache Agency and by some of the local homeowners. So it's made this a lot easier. Yes. give yourselves a hand on that. That's an important thing, and I think communities like yours, it's good that you recognize that. So this road here, we've gone in there, we've cleaned up a little bit more from what hadn't been done. So we've got a kind of a contingency line if you will. We've also come out here in Division Zulu and built some contingency lines continuing on out to 65 road. All of these are just in case type situations so that we've got a backup to the backup to the backup, because you never know when something like this is going to happen. So coming on down here this evening, they're going to continue bringing fire down along this old playground fire. A lot of people are asking us, why aren't you getting there against the main fire and putting it out? That's called direct attack. That's us getting right against the fire line and putting the fire out. The fire is too intense for us to be in there doing that. The fire behavior is too risky for our firefighters to do that safely. So we've got to take a defensive posture, and we've got to go what we call indirect. Get away from that main fire and work away from it. And that's where we put that fire on the ground. We control it under our circumstances and let it burn itself back towards the main fire. So again, we're going to be doing that through here tonight and starting to work down the 33 road. Today, we have a pretty good pocket of fire that's coming out right in this general area right here. You guys can see this series of roads right here. It was just starting to push this furthest road to the west right here when I came into the briefing. So there's a canyon here. It's hard to see on this map. There's a canyon right here that's got a lot of pine in it, and it made what we call a push or a surge in that canyon and came off into here. A few other spots, we've got some pockets in here that got active today, but the smoke had a tendency to kind of stay over the fire today. And what that has a tendency to do is it shades our fire. When it shades our fire, it actually cools the fuels. The fuels don't get that direct sunlight, they don't get as hot, and our fire behavior, believe it or not, it does not increase as high. So with that smoke hanging in here today, it kind of kept our fire a little bit docile, although it did grow in some areas. The challenge with that is when we get that smoke that lays in over our fire like that, is that it limits our use of aircraft. It limits our eyes in the sky that can see down and actually see the ground because there's a layer of smoke there. They can't see that. It limits our use of those aircraft for the suppression efforts as well. So coming on down, they're going to continue the burn here tonight. We're still scouting some of this country in here. Today, we had crews come in here to protect. This is the community of Cedar Creek. We did hit a pre-evacuation notice. This line right here in Cedar Creek. We did evacuate those folks or put them on a pre-evacuation only. But we did get in here and we did control this fire right here today and stop this southern progression. Coming back up on the west side here, this flank is still active. It burned off into some real rugged country here, so you've got a lot of broken country is what we call it, a lot of rock, scattered fuels, but still fingers of fuel that the fire is following. Just really rough country to put folks in on foot. So we kind of just monitored this through the day. We've had crews working their way in, trying to figure out how we're going to control this. So today was a big scouting day for this area in here. And again, just so for reference, Cedar Creek, this is 73 here. This is the junction back to 60. Up in this corner here, this was our original control feature. This is Long Tom Canyon. We came in here today and they came in with a machine they call a plastic sphere dispenser. We put that on a helicopter. It actually drops a ping pong type ball that actually ignites when it hits the ground. So we went up on these mesas here and we actually put some fire at the top of the mesas. And the reason that we do that is we want to minimize those fire effects in those ecosystems. So what it does is that fire now wants to back down those slopes, a lot less intense. It's again controlled under our circumstances. We put it in there late in the evening, so it just kind of creeps down through there at night, robs the ground fuels, but doesn't take out the canopy. That's our goal there, is to leave that canopy in place. So they were successful in here. They're going to let that fire back down in here tonight. We're going to have plenty of folks sitting on this tonight to make sure it doesn't go across 60. We don't see any concerns with that at this time, barring any unforeseen wind changes or gusts or anything of that nature. And then again, right here on 60, just to finish the loop here, this is all looking very well. We've got that mopped up, and things are looking good in there. And I think that pretty much covers everything for my briefing, and I think I'm going to be able to answer some questions at the end.
We really can't speak enough how helpful this Type 1 team has been, as well as all the crews who have responded from the state and around the country. If we could just give one more hand to them. So next we'll bring up some local firefighting perspective. We'll actually bring up both Pine Top Fire Chief Jim Morgan and Timber Mesa Fire Chief Brian Savage.
Good evening, everybody. First, I'd like to talk or have you keep your thoughts and prayers for the men and women that are on the front lines this evening, and for the support group that's providing the incident management team the tools they need to effectively fight this fire every day. Second, I want to remind you and assure the citizens and the visitors of our communities that you remain protected. While we have resources that are supporting this operation, our communities are still receiving the same service, and in some cases those services are enhanced due to the amount of resources that are in our communities protecting you at this very moment. And I'd like Chief Savage to talk a little bit about those operational things that are going on in our communities that take care of the daily things.
Good evening, and thank you for being here. Like Chief Morgan just mentioned, we are supporting the fire to the extent that we can. It's in our area, and we certainly have firefighters that are out there working with the team to fight this wildfire out on the reservation. Meanwhile, we're also tasked with providing day-to-day operations in these communities for all the same things that you dial 911 for every other day. So we do have crews in the field. We have added to that staffing. We've got additional engines staffed here in town, and Jim and I have worked collaboratively on that to make sure that we have the areas covered from Show Low all the way out to Honda. Additionally, we are very much engaged with the incident management team, specifically the initial attack division. We attend the briefings almost daily, or if not, one of us is always there. And we have several other folks that are embedded in the team and what's going on there as well. So not only do we have the resources that we've been able to bring to bear, but we also have additional resources from the initial attack division on the fire, so that if anything else breaks out in town, we have those resources available to us as well. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Jim to talk about some of the things that we're doing collaboratively, not only with regard to this fire, but as we move forward to protect these communities next summer and the summer after.
Thank you, Brian. I want to talk about something that we've been using over the last several days, and that's a phrase that we're not out of the woods. I'd like you to put this in a different perspective, and until this fire is contained, we are not out of danger. You just heard the incident management team talk about this being a dynamic situation. And as a result, our fire danger remains high in this community. Let me give you some examples of what I mean. June 18th, 2002, we just had the anniversary of the Rodeo Cedar. Used to be the largest fire in Arizona. July 13th, 2003, the Kanishpa fire on the tribe's land. June 26th, 2014, the San Juan fire. August 28th, the Playground fire of 2015. March 6th of 2016, the Phoenix fire in the Heber Overguard area. May 20th, 2016, the Juniper fire on the Tonto National Forest. May 20th, the Patty Creek fire, again on tribal lands. June 15th, the Cedar fire, the engagement we're currently in. That same day, we had another fire break out near Vernon called the Kumedo fire. You live in a WUI, wild urban interface. We come here because we love the trees. You heard our incident commanders talk about fuels and the density of the fuels. That's providing some of this fire and the intensity of the fire. This is where we need your help. We can't do this alone. In Arizona, there are 65 Firewise communities. In the White Mountains, there's only one. We've got to change that. This is where we need your personal accountability and responsibility to help us make our community safe. We live in a WUI. How do we do that? Don't fear the fire, embrace the fire, and manage your risk. The danger still exists. So we talked about ready, set, go. Ready. This is get yourself prepared for that evacuation. We've been on this pre-evacuation notice now for darn near a week, and I recognize that it seems to be a little bit of a roller coaster up and down. Now is not the time to let your guard down. Be vigilant. For those folks that are stopping into our fire stations asking about what's happening, keep doing that. When you recognize the weather change and you see the ash and the smoke coming into your community, there's a reason that hair should stand up on the back of your neck. There's a change, and we need to be reminiscent of that because that's a change that's affecting our men and women on the fire line, and that potential evacuation order could come. So if you haven't done it already, you need to have those important documents prepared, your medications and your pets assigned. Have that go bag ready. If you've got kids, give your children an assignment. Have a place that you're going to meet if that evacuation order occurs. In addition to that, have a friend outside of our area or a family member outside of our area that you're in contact with so that the evacuation order happens, you can immediately call them and then they can get the information to the rest of your families and friends. Have that meeting place already identified. As you've heard, we have shelters that are already stood up. Identify which one you may want to go to. And then have an evacuation route, not one, but two. For those of you that are in the Pinetop Lakeside area, particularly in the country club, 260 may not be the best egress route. It may be that evacuation route through the forest. So know what that is. Know it now. Drive it if you haven't driven it, and be prepared. Because right now we have a window of opportunity to prepare. Mary Springer is probably going to come up and talk about this, so I won't spend a lot of time, but Ready Navajo County is our 911 system. For those of you that have come into our respective stations asking about how we're going to be notified, that's the primary way. If you haven't registered, you need to do that because that's how you're going to get notified. Many of you may not be very familiar with the internet. Maybe you can't register. Mary's going to talk about how to access that. Create old school networking. For many of you, you belong to a church, and it's called a phone tree. Recognize that and activate that phone tree as a backup. Now I want to touch on Firewise a little bit. We call it the HIZ zone, the hazard ignition zone. Again, we would have hoped that by now you've already addressed this, but if you haven't, you still have time. 0 to 5 feet, have a clear path cleaned away from your home of all ground litter. Make sure that your roofs are clear of pine needles and leaves and other debris. Clean those gutters. If you've got a wood pile, it should have been removed from your patio several months ago. It's still not too late. Get it away at least 30 feet. Within that 5 to 30 foot space, for those of you that like to get out in the yard and do some trimming, get rid of the ladder fuels, limb up those trees. Clean out old dead vegetation from the landscaping that you have as well. And then I want to remind everybody, right now we're in stage 1 fire restrictions. Personal accountability. Came back from a briefing Sunday morning, and there's a gentleman on the sidewalk smoking. Not only was he smoking, he's flicking the ashes in the 6 to 7 inch grass, dry grass, along the side of the sidewalk. We're not asking you to stop smoking, but be responsible. One of our businesses has the slogan on the sign that says, "Be Firewise, keep your butts in the can." The other thing that I want to talk to you about, again, I mentioned we only have one Firewise community. We've been planning this for a little over a year now. On July 30th at Station 12 within the Pinetop Fire District, we're holding a community Firewise block party. This is where you can come out and learn how to engage. We want to change that number and get HOAs, homeowners associations, on board as designated Firewise communities. And again, those personal accountability as individual homeowners, you help us treat your properties so that when fire comes through, your risk allows our firefighters to work safely around your home and get a real shot at protecting your properties. That's a collaborative effort between the Timber Mesa Fire District and the Pinetop Fire District, as many as other folks, including Navajo County Emergency Management. So write that date down and please come out and learn how to become risk adverse to wildfire and not fear this beast, but embrace it so that we have a more resilient community. I can't tell you when this is going to end. We don't know. It could be 5 days, it could be 2 more weeks. And if something like the rodeo Chetasky reoccurs, 2 months, you have got to be prepared, and we can't do it alone. Chief Savage, you want to add anything?
I think that was well said.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Saturday, July 30th, 9:30 to 2:30. And I forgot to tell you, there are firefighters in the audience. Look for a blue shirt, and they have a handout that gives you a brief description. Thank you.
So next we'll go into the county perspective, and we'll bring up Navajo County Emergency Management Director, Mary Spring.
Thank you all and good evening. And I'm really pleased to see that you all did come out here tonight, because this is very important. And one of the things that we do early on, and we try and do a really good job, is get as much information out to you as quickly as possible. And I know we don't run Twitter, and we're not at the speed of light, but we run as fast as we can. And just so you know, we had pictures on 311 info and a quick brief description of this fire within 20 minutes of us finding out. And I'll tell you why that was, because we had a collaborative meeting with the fire chiefs that day to go over emergency planning. So that's how quickly we got information out to you. And the other thing that we do is we work with the Incident Command, we work with the BIA, and we work with the tribe, because we all want to make sure that we're putting out vetted, good information that you can rely on. The worst thing that we can do is put out half-truths and not good information, because that just starts the rumor mill. And believe me, we've had to chase a lot of that over the last few days. So really, 311info.net. The Incident Command has set up a website that you can get information. Those are the places that you can get vetted information that's good. We do say we work with our media partners. They're dialed in as well. And like Jim said, this event that's coming out, our media partners are important to us. We will be using them to make sure the word gets out. And please tell your neighbors. Let them know that this event is happening, because it's very important to your communities. Another thing that we do, we plan all year long. We work with our partners. We work with the Fire Restrictions Working Group. We work out in your communities. How many of you grabbed one of those Ready Navajo County sheets? Are you ready to fill them out tonight? Because my biggest fear is I can't reach you. If I can't reach you, I can't alert you. And that system, what that tells you, we use it for emergencies only. We're not going to let you know the bake sale's going on. If there's an evacuation, that's what we're going to use. We use 311 to send information out and keep you informed as much as possible. But that Ready Navajo County, that's your lifeline, or media, the radio, White Mountain Independent, all those avenues. But if you want us to send you a notification right to you, you fill that paper out, you tell us how you want to be notified, that's how you're going to get it. So I can't stress to you enough how important it is to get that. And those bands, just in case, those bands that we were handing out, they glow in the dark. And so when it's dark and you're walking out in that parking lot and you haven't signed up or given me a piece of paper, just remember you got to do it when you get home or tomorrow. You can take those sheets with you, and you can go ahead and fill them out and drop them off at your local fire department if you can't do it tonight. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Adam, and I thank you all for your patience, your kindness, and your generosity.
Again, just to reiterate some points, you can drop those off at your local fire department, or you can hand them to Mary tonight, and you will be in that system to be notified. So next, we'll bring up a representative of the Bureau of Indian Affairs, as well as the Fort Apache Agency. They've been a great partner through all this, so please welcome Candy Lupi.
Good evening. My name is Candy Lupi with the Bureau of Indian Affairs, Fort Apache Agency. And on behalf of the agency, I'd like to welcome all you tonight. The Bureau of Indian Affairs holds a trust responsibility to the White Mountain Apache Tribe and their lands. And so working in partnership and on a government-to-government basis with the White Mountain Apache Tribe, we welcome the Type 1 Incident Management Team. You know, the day the fire started, we were all sitting in a meeting going over we were pre-planning the fall burn-in that we needed to get, you know, plan ahead. And so we were going over with the burn bosses the areas that were being planned for the fall. And usually our prescribed burn-in usually occurs in October, and we were wanting to get ahead of the schedule by planning. And so it was like about 11:40 when we did get a call, and we had to cut our meeting short, and where we had all our resources rolled to the fire. And quickly, within an hour, it was the decision to go to a Type 2 incident. However, it would have taken longer for the Type 2 team to get to the reservation. Therefore, and then also knowing the need, it was bumped up to a Type 1 incident. So, you know, the strategy and the plan and everything, it went really fast. In a matter of minutes, the fire grew from 5 acres to over 100 acres. And so I was really, I'm grateful with the quick response of our neighboring resources with the Forest Service and other local agencies that came to assist with the fire. So they talked earlier about the playground fire. The playground fire occurred last August, and it was actually a fire that was used as a resource benefit fire. It was a fire started by lightning, and it was a little over 5,000 acres at the end. And that was something that we are really pushing within the Bureau of Indian Affairs in collaboration with the White Mountain Apache Tribe, you know, along with all the thin-in projects that are going on. We also use fire as a tool when there's the right time to use it. You know, if the weather conditions are favorable, and usually come monsoon season, we're able to utilize fire, because fire is very sacred. Fire can be destructive, but yet fire can bring new life. And so on behalf of BIA, Fort Apache Agency, I'd like to thank the team and our neighbors. You know, we all live here in the Great White Mountain community. We have all such beautiful lands up here. And I think by continuing working together, collaborating, communicating, you know, we can, as a team, we can really continue to protect and enhance our beautiful White Mountains. Thank you very much.
And for a view from the public safety side of things, we will bring up Pine Top Lakeside Police Chief David Sargent.
Thank you all for being here tonight. I thought we were actually earlier expecting a little less of a turnout, and we're grateful that we are almost filled to capacity here. Let me share a couple things from public safety standpoint. This is a Type 1 incident team. It's Team 2 in this area. It's the only team, my understanding, in all of the United States that has an embedded law enforcement officer at Incident Command. And when you look at the benefit of that, we get information very, very quickly. When we look at these, we've been calling them trigger points. We're going to go back to management action points. Those management action points, when they hit those, we've got enough time to get people in the neighborhoods and knock on every single door in that neighborhood before we get to a point where we're really starting to face some danger with structure unless the fire is doing something tremendously crazy. So I wanted to set you guys a little bit at ease that here in the White Mountains we have very, very good interagency agreements, very good cooperation from the sheriff to the undersheriff, Chief Melissa, to Chief Joe Shelley in Sholo. We've all been working together from day one to make sure, and Tim Webster, who's now down at the White Mountain Apache Tribe, to make sure that the resources are getting put in the places that they need to make sure that our citizens stay safe. We will be in those neighborhoods knocking on doors long before fire creeps up to your doorsteps. That's the first thing that I wanted to just cover really quick. The second thing, is there's a group out there. You can go to the Pine Top Lakeside Facebook page. I do believe they posted it right before we got here. There's an organization out there that's trying to collect donations, and they're using the name of the Red Cross, Salvation Army, and Navajo County Emergency Management. I'm not going to go into that a whole lot here, but if you would go there and have a look at that to make sure that you're not donating to some place that's not going directly to the fire. The next point that I'd like to cover is just, we live in an area where we have very good people here. Since day one of this fire, my email box has just been pounded. What can we do to help? What can we do to help? A lot of that's come from churches. And so let me close on this note. Having talked about the public safety, and we also work very well with fire. My dad and grandfather were firefighters, so I'll harass these guys, but we work very well together. The thing that I'd like to close with is something just on a personal note. We've got a whole bunch of different faiths sitting in here today, and they've all asked me in email and otherwise, what can we do to help? Now, in law enforcement, we're not immune to seeing miracles happen. And I must tell you, from day one of this fire, there's been miracle after miracle after miracle. If you look at the map, and it ran to our evacuation, pre-evacuation, and it stopped. Then it starts burning back on itself. Then it makes a run all the way south, right before Cedar Creek, and stops. And now it's burning back into itself. There was some talk yesterday about how volatile that fire was. I was at the 6 o'clock operational briefing, and I heard some of the side conversation. I heard the conversation that was going on. They were very, very concerned with these plumes, these plume-dominated fires, that these plumes would rise, they collapse, and when they do collapse, they're bringing down wind and a cold pocket at 35, 70 miles an hour, and that blows the fire out like crazy. The wind wasn't forecast to do this, but all day yesterday there were crosswinds that cut those things in half and caused them to fall before they came to fruition. So, I don't know that it really matters what faith you are if you have faith. I think that everybody in here needs to continue to come together to say those prayers, not only for the fire behavior, but for those men and women that are out on the front lines, for these good people and their families that they've stepped away from to come into our state to help us. Brandon Eager is that law enforcement. Many of you know Brandon Eager is the Chief Deputy of Apache County. He's our embedded law enforcement liaison, and I just got to tell you, there's not very many people on this earth better than Brandon Eager. And if we're in trouble, Brandon's going to give us a call real quick, and we're going to get on that real soon. So thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. I would imagine Adam's going to turn it over some questioning here in a minute, but please remember these people in your prayers. Please remember this fire in your prayers, because like I said, there's been miracle after miracle after miracle watching this happen.
So before we turn it over to questions, I just want to touch on a couple points. We do have a holiday weekend coming up. Something to keep in mind, social responsibility. Between Memorial Day and the start of this fire, we had over 100 abandoned campfires. be aware of what you're doing. Drown the fire, stir it, drown it again. If it's too hot to touch, it's too hot to leave. Please keep that in mind. The other thing, we've had some feedback that some members of the community don't feel we are communicating enough. I promise you, every piece of information we get, we put out to you. We want you to be informed. We want you to know what's going on. For many of us, this is our home as well. I went to high school here. This is what I consider my home. I care about it greatly. I want to keep you informed. We want to keep you informed. We're going to do everything we can to protect your property and to protect your homes, but most importantly, we're going to protect you. You are the most important resource. Please keep that in mind. We are doing everything we can for your safety. At this time, we will open up for questions. How we're going to do this, we have 2 microphones at the end of each aisle. Please, in an orderly fashion, line up, and please only ask 1 question at a time. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hello. Thank you very much for all your help for our community. It's really much appreciated. A quick question about evacuation orders. If that should come along, how long will we have? Will it be a 3-hour period? Will it be a 12-hour period?
That depends on the behavior of the fire. What we were seeing on day 2, so that, you know, day 1 was kind of crazy. We were, at the end of day 1, we thought, okay, this is going to lay down and go to sleep. People went home, started taking gear off, and then started getting phone calls that, oh, wait a minute, this has made a huge run, and it pushed 2 miles in, I think, about an hour, right up to our point, and there it stopped. The next morning, every one of our officers, a whole bunch of Navajo County deputies, were in the neighborhoods over on Homestead and Spawn Cellar, over in that area, and down in the Wagon Wheel area staged. When we get that call, if the fire, what's the max winds that we've seen here, 20, 30? My understanding is the trigger points that we have set up for Pinetop Lakeside, or the management action points that we have, so the fire's got to jump that point, and then it has to become established, which means once it jumps the point, it has to be a fire that they can no longer control. And if it jumps that point and it becomes a fire they can't control, my understanding is we had anywhere from 4 to 6 hours to knock on doors and tell people, guess what, it's time to go. That's a lot of time, unless, again, there's crazy things happening and we get a 40-mile-an-hour wind pushing that fire really hard. Then we dump more resources in the neighborhood and we just knock on doors faster. We got people coming up here from all over the state on day 2. Our command post, or the Sheriff's Office command post at the South County Complex, had officers from all over the state ready to go into neighborhoods, ready to go wherever we needed to go, put people wherever they needed to be put, so that your door got knocked on, so that you had enough time to get your stuff and go. That's why it's so important to be in the ready phase now, so if that knock comes, we're not spending 4 hours packing. Hope that answered that question.
Again, that's why it's important to stay prepared. We are still in pre-evacuation status. Sir?
At what point on the map, in the north-northeast, will that line extend upward before we get into this mode of evacuation, notification?
So if you're looking at this map here, it's real hard to see, but so here's one of our management action points right here, and then the other one comes across right here. And those are those management action points that he's talking about. Once the fire crosses those and gets established, that's where we start to make decisions. And the reason we call it a management action point is because it's all dependent on the situation. So if it's in that 40-mile-per-hour wind situation, obviously we ramp that up a whole lot harder. If winds are only blowing 5 miles per hour, then we've got a different scenario. So it gives us time to be thinkers and think this through, but at the same time begin the process of acting.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to know if there's specific percentage of containment that has to be reached before you lift the pre-evacuation?
You know, there's no specific containment tied to the pre-evacuation. You know, it's all about, you know, making sure that things are secure before we lift that, and we have a high confidence level that we're not going to have something odd happen or unexpected happen. You know, I do appreciate the patience that folks have, because it is a tough decision for us to make, but we don't want to be premature and then have to redo it all over again. So the containment doesn't have anything necessarily to do with that, a percent.
Yes, sir.
First, I want to say that as far as communications are concerned, I think you guys are doing a superb job. On Facebook, I'm telling you, on Facebook, it's just remarkable. I get more information on Facebook or Twitter than I get from anywhere else. It's just packed full of information. And my phone, every 4 hours, my phone is waking me up and telling me there's a new situation or everything is the same. So I thank you for that. My question is, there were aircraft on the fighting the last few days, and I didn't hear aircraft with slurry drops. I did hear 7 helicopters. What has happened to our aircraft?
We'll bring Craig up to answer that in just a sec. I want to touch on that Facebook. There are still a lot of Facebook rumors. Please make sure the Facebook sources you are using are the official sources.
So give you a little background on the aircraft. So again, the media likes to portray that the planes are what puts the fire out, and they're just one of our tools in the toolbox. Those aircraft are only effective when we can put boots on the ground and go in after they've made their drops. With that said, we had, I believe it was 5 heavy air tankers loaded and returned most of the day yesterday. Flew very hard and heavy out of Phoenix Gateway, Winslow, and we had seats flying out of Sholo here. The folks that probably live in the area probably were sick of the little planes coming over, but the seats are the single engine crop duster type planes. Those flew nonstop yesterday. I was asking for a number from our air attack folks before I came to the meeting, but I think we were calculating probably close to 100,000 gallons of retardant dropped yesterday. That's quite significant. There's probably very few fires that I've been on that we've dropped that much retardant. Today we weren't able to fly because of the smoke. The smoke really hampered those operations. Those air tankers do not like to drop when they cannot see the ground, and rightfully so. They want to know how much distance they have to react. When they're carrying that much weight, they're not as nimble as they were designed to be in most cases. So we don't fly them when they can't see the ground. Now the helicopters, they have a little bit more ability to get under that smoke, work around that smoke. A fixed wing aircraft, it's basically got to take a straight line. A helicopter can jig and jog and bump up and down and maneuver around. So the aircraft, when they've been available, that's the other thing. On the air tankers, they're a national resource. They're not tied to our incident, so we have no control over those. When we make that order, it has to drop into a national system, and it's prioritized. Now, I will say this, we are the #1 priority fire in the United States right now, so we are high priority. The other thing that happens, that helps us too, so we're glad when we're #1 because we don't have to beg as much. The other thing that happens though is in that same breath is the new starts are also, they take precedence over going fires. The reason for that is they try to keep them small so that we don't get to a point where we're at this managing this large of a beast. They try to get on them fast with the aircraft. So if there's new starts, they get priority. So if there's a plane even headed to our incident and there's a new start that they can divert to and try to make a difference, then they will. Yeah.
We just wanted to follow up again on that potential for evacuation. Again, you live in a WUI, so because you live in this environment, particularly in those high danger fire times, evacuation should always be in the back of your mind. That's why we talk about being prepared. On that same front, those of you that have respiratory illnesses, that should be a consideration for evacuation. As you've seen, and the incident management team has talked about this dynamic change of the fire, the smoke is shifting anywhere from Sholo to Honda and everywhere in between. If you've got respiratory illness, that should be a consideration for you to either stay inside or consider pre-evacuation simply from your respiratory ailment component.
You know, one more thing. If you know anyone, elderly, disabled, people that just can't get around, keep them in mind because that can help the police and the fire if it did come to that point. Thank you.
On the map, could you show us where the trigger point is and how far it is from, how far the fire is from the trigger point where we have to evacuate?
Yeah. Okay, so there's several management action points. Try to really emphasize that. In the fire business, we've been brought up saying trigger point, but we're trying to really say management action point. So we've got the one that's right here, and that is the management action point for the Sholo to about Pine Top area. I think that's Pine Top on the map, if I'm not mistaken. I need extra glasses here. And then down here, this management action point kind of goes from there all the way out to McNary to include Honda, Pine Top, Lakeside, and then, so what like I explained earlier, we have to wait for that fire. We're waiting for that fire to cross that line and get established on the other side of that line. Once it establishes, that's where that gives us the opportunity to not just say it's a trigger point, okay, everybody evacuate. We need to evaluate very seriously where we're at. As your police chief told you, that gives them plenty of time to get out, inform you, knock on doors, get folks out in an orderly fashion. That's one of those lines are so far down the map. Now, I've also been asked the question why the lines are so far away from these communities but so close to Cedar Creek. Well, it's a different type of fuel. Different fuel types, different terrain, different direction that the terrain is facing in comparison to the predominant winds. So a lot of the canyons in this country here, as you all well know, has a lot of pine in it. That is very high probability of ignition and fire spread. Whereas you get down into the Cedar Creek area, you have more of a pinon juniper type, a lot more open ground, actual bare ground, and the fire's got to back downhill to get there. As I explained to you earlier, fire likes to run uphill quicker, so being at the top of the hill is not always the best thing in a fire situation. So that's why we gave ourselves a whole lot more space here than we did down here. So the fire has to establish well over those lines, then we have those conversations and we determine what our weather is, what the time of the day is, many factors that are played into that. It's just not okay, we're going now. There's a discussion that's had, and we look at all those factors that are played in at that moment in time.
And how far is it from that point?
The fire is actually right near there, but that part of the fire is actually the part that is looking very well. We've got that part stopped. We've got that away. The concern now is this piece of fire from here to the south. That is the piece that's uncontrolled at this time. Our concerns obviously are as if it moves around the bottom side of the playground fire, realigns with slope and topography and those fuels, and tries to push back up into this country. That's where our concern is now. So, but I also want to explain too, it's also a very dynamic environment. Again, when that fire can start throwing spots out 3/4 of a mile ahead of itself, all it would take is an island in here that didn't burn up and didn't clean up to torch out, possibly throw a spot over, get established, and get going again. So that's why we're still cautious. We're still cautiously optimistic about where we're at up here, but it takes us some time to get to that point where we feel very comfortable about saying, hey, we're good there.
distance from the fire to that line? Like, is it a half a mile, a mile?
Yeah, that's probably about, originally we had that line right here, but it was hard to see, right along that 4165 road, so it's just off there. It's probably a half a mile from there. But again, that distance, again, what I'm trying to emphasize is that distance is really not important right now because we've got that side of the fire looking very well.
Yes, ma'am.
Speaking of respiratory, and I live in Show, which is one of the towns included. I have been at the Red Cross shelter at the high school in Snowflake. Now, I heard today that they closed and moved to Holbrook. Does anybody have the address of the shelter in Holbrook?
Yeah, so just to clarify on that, the shelter is moving tomorrow after about breakfast time. It will relocate to Holbrook High School. Mary, do you have the address for that?
We'll have it posted and the Red Cross will have it.
We will have that address posted, and so will the Red Cross, but it's not moving until tomorrow morning. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question because my husband and I are big ambient campers, and we are one of the ones that drown shovels and everything right next to our campfire, even if we're burning it. But we are what I like to call self-contained. We've got a whole set of generators and everything. We have already determined that if we are evacuated, we're just going. Do we have to check in with an evacuation center? Or can we just go to the designated location?
So as far as just from a public safety standpoint, we do have tags. There's a green tag and an orange tag. Green tag on your home indicates you have evacuated. So that is most important. We know that you are not home. If you put that orange tag on your home, that tells public safety that you are still there. If you choose to stay, if an evacuation occurs, you will not be able to leave your property. But if you put that green tag, and please display it prominently if this situation does occur, that will tell public safety that you have left.
I don't want to put that on the
Do we pass them out if evacuation occurs?
At the time that an evacuation would be announced, there would be officers in the neighborhood, and you get a tag from them, and you could put it on your door. Let me just speak one thing to evacuation security. If this town was evacuated, at nighttime in here, we would have half a dozen or more officers doing nothing but patrolling neighborhoods all night long. If you stay, like you said, you have to stay on your property. You're off your property, you're subject to arrest. If you want to stay, then we come and we get a whole bunch of information from you, and then we put the orange tag there. We'd prefer you to go. You've got property rights. So if you stay, you need to stay on your property. Having said that, like I said, we did this for the Alpine fire. Pine Top Lakeside was up in Alpine on the weekends. We worked the graveyard shift all through the weekends, and all of my officers and myself were in Alpine, patrolling those neighborhoods, making sure nobody's running through and doing things they shouldn't do, going and shaking doors, making sure everything's secure. So if you do have to evacuate, there's a heavy law enforcement presence that remains here to make sure that your property is secure.
Thank you very much. I appreciate all of your efforts very much.
We manage a dialysis clinic, and we have anywhere from 12 to 24 patients in the clinic at a time. And they're dialyzing from anywhere to 3 to 4 hours. Most of them rely on medical transportation, and sometimes that medical transportation is slow in good conditions. Is there any city transportation or other transportation available for backup if we do need to evacuate?
Yeah, both the Timber Mesa Fire Department and Pine Top have individual ambulances that would become an available resource in terms of the ill, the folks that are shut-ins and things like that. The other thing that we do in the emergency management arena is we use public transportation. And what I mean by that, school buses, if we needed to do mass evacuations. Again, that's all part of the pre-planning. Those are things that we need to know about ahead of time so that we can execute that fairly quickly.
Okay, do I need to register somewhere or just let you know about the clinic and the location?
You should have already gotten that information to folks like Mary Springer at Navajo County.
If you have information, if you are a center, see me after this meeting so I can take down your information. We have a group of folks that have been working really long hours to make sure we've identified those places. But if you haven't talked to us yet, please see me after the meeting.
Yes, ma'am.
A little short.
I know that feeling.
Can I ask two questions? I was disabled, so okay. The first question is, how likely, knowing everything you know now, do you think that the fire will come to Pine Top Lakeside?
Okay, so it's very hard to answer that question because just the sporadic nature of the wildfire, we've already seen where it looked just about done and then made a run south. So this, as most wildfires do, it pretty much has a mind of its own, so it's hard to predict what it will do. What I can say is that the Type 1 team, the BIA, all the fire crews we have are working day and night to make sure our communities are protected.
Okay, so you can't really say.
It's very hard to predict a wildfire.
Okay, all right, second question. Being disabled, my sister and her husband had been up here with me. They have a place up here also. But they went home yesterday because it was looking so good, not knowing what was going to happen last night. And so now, after what happened last night, they're hoping that if we get evacuation notice, they can come back up and help me we took out some of the stuff out of my car last night, and then my car is kind of not packed well anymore. If there's an evacuation notice, would they be able to get back up here again to help me evacuate to their place in Tucson?
That again would depend on fire behavior, what highways were closed. What I can tell you is officers change tires, and guess what? We can help you put stuff in your car if you need. If you need help evacuating, and this is serious, if you need help evacuating, what I would like you to do is email me at the Pine Top Lakeside Police Department, and so I can start putting you on a list so that if this does happen here, we can send an officer to your house to make sure we're getting everything that you need in your car and going. Now, please don't unpack the rest of your car, though. But I'm just saying, if there's not enough time for them to get up here, if the roads are open and they can get up here, we don't have a problem with them coming up here. If those roads are closed or this fire is moving too quickly and it becomes very volatile, they may not be able to get up here, but we can get you help to get that packed. Okay?
If the evacuation notice goes out and the roads are still clear enough for them to come up here, would they be able to come up here?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, in your color-coded map, the green, the dark green, the light green, and the yellow areas, how active is the fire in that area? Could you show me what you're looking at?
So that's a progression map. So each one of those colors are tied to the specific day from the beginning of the start. So I don't quite understand your question.
Well,
the colors.
Is the fire active in the dark green areas, which was the first day of the fire, and it goes into the light green areas?
Okay, I see what you're saying. The question is the fire active within the perimeter regardless of those colors on the map? And the answer is there are areas that are still active and there's areas that are smoldering. You know, we're more concerned about the areas that are adjacent to the control lines. We want to make sure that we have that depth where we don't have any type of threat that could potentially cross that control feature of the containment lines. But there is areas, and it's going to be smoking for quite some time, just, you know, a stump hole or a heavy down log or something, that will continue to smoke for quite some time, all across the fire area. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. You're doing a great job.
Yes, sir.
My name is Daryl McNeil. I've lived in this area for 75 years. In a couple of months, I'll be 75. And I'm quite concerned you said a while ago you had 7 bulldozers. How are you making sure that they're utilized?
You know, bulldozers are just another tool in our toolbox, if you will. You know, there's a right place, a right time that we can utilize those resources. You know, obviously they don't work very well on really rocky, bluffy country. So a lot of this country is full of rocks and bluffs. Most of the country in there that could be utilized with dozers has roads in it. Some of them are old roads. So we have opened up some of those old roads. So when the ground presents itself, and the second part of that is working closely with the tribe. There's a lot of archaeological stuff in there, a lot of sacred areas for them. You know, we don't want to damage those areas, so we work closely with them. So it's in coordination. Then we utilize those dozers. But I can tell you that the blades have been rolling out there, so they have been utilized.
Another question is, you were saying that Forest Service starts a lot of fires. How are you on these backfires? How many of these backfires gets out of control that you do?
You know, that's hard to answer. I would say, you know, we're successful with our burnout operations probably about 90-95% of the time. You know, we try to put those on the ground when we can control the conditions, control that fire as much as we can. Obviously, it's a natural force, so it's not completely controllable, but in most cases we can do it pretty well. The times when we're not successful is a lot of times we'll do that as a last-ditch effort to see if we can get that to work. And in a lot of those cases, we were going to lose that piece of ground anyways. So we'll try to throw that in there and see if we can stop it. It's kind of like throwing a rock at a bear. You hope it'll turn around, but sometimes it's successful and sometimes it's not.
Thank you very much.
I did not get a robocall from fire when the first pre-evacuation notice was sent, but those people did. So I have since registered on the Navajo County site.
Ready, Navajo County?
I registered my cell phone. So that means if there's any robocalls going out or evacuation notices, I'll get the call. Right?
Yes, if you signed up for Ready Navajo County and you put your cell phone as your contact, we will call you on that.
So how does that notice, I'm assuming that notice is going to go out before there are personnel in the neighborhood doing personal notifications and giving out the orange or green tags. So if you get the call, should you wait until somebody shows up in the neighborhood?
If you get the call for an evacuation, and there's going to be a few different methods that would happen, one of which is Ready Navajo County, start getting your things ready and start leaving. If you want that green tag, you can also leave a note on your door. You know, they're going to go door to door. If they see that you have left, we can put that on there.
Yeah.
But just make it known that you are gone. If you get that notice and you decide to leave right away, just please make it known that you have left that property.
Yeah, my car is packed.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot. Thanks so much for all your help.
Now we have time for just a couple more questions.
Yeah, I have a concern. We still have people coming up here, and I've watched the helicopters pulling water out of Shola Lake. Is there a way to put a buoy? Because more people are coming up, they're getting their boats and kayaks on the water, and they're going towards the area, they're pulling the water out. Is there a way to put a buoy so they don't go to that side of the lake? Because I'd hate them to have to stop pulling up water because somebody from Phoenix or somewhere else decides they want to kayak towards that area.
So we have, an air operations person that works closely with the pilots, and the pilots that are flying the helicopters, it's their discretion. If they see somebody, a boat or something on the water, they're not gonna utilize the lake.
Well, that's my point. If they put a buoy, see, that will hinder them addressing the fire. There should be a buoy there making those people who come up, we're aware of it, and they're not, because they just barely got up here, to put something to say, don't come to this side of the lake.
Yeah, and I think it's a good idea, and I can visit with the air operations folks. But right now, the way that's been handled is it's the pilot's discretion, and they'll orbit the lake, and people see a big heavy helicopter gonna take some water out of the lake. Hopefully they're paying attention. If not, the pilots are watching, and if they see them, they'll just pull back up.
Well, just like they've been having hikers still hiking and dying in the heat, they're not paying attention. And to me, it's putting the fire at risk for not getting the water. Those pilots, I think they can maneuver, they're excellent. But we've got so many idiots out there. And we're all aware, something needs to be put out there to keep them from going to that side of the lake, so they're not stopped to, okay, I gotta go to this spot. Something needs to be done.
Oh, here's my buddy. Oh.
Okay, we only have time for 2 more questions, so we'll go here and then we'll come back to you.
Are there any areas set aside for people in self-contained trailers or campers? For any of us who are needing.
Do we have any areas set aside for people with trailers? Not at this time. What we're recommending is that you just please evacuate the things that are most important and head to a shelter or to somewhere outside of the containment zone if you do have that.
Just to clarify, the campgrounds are open, so if there is a campground that you want to go to, you can do that. You can leave. We have had people that have already gone to different locations because they've had health issues or other issues, or they want to be out of danger or out of pre-evac. We also have had folks self-evacuate to our shelter because they've had health issues. So those are options, and we have to kind of leave that up to you, but as everybody else has said, you need to be prepared, and if part of your preparation is you're going to take your camper and go to a campground, by all means go ahead and do that.
Just please make sure you do get far enough out of any evacuation zone, and this will actually be our last question.
I'm wondering what the exact Facebook page is for us, the locals, not 311.
Okay, so the official Facebook page for the Type 1 team is facebook.com/cedarfireinfo. So that's Cedar Fire Info, and you can also get that same information on either Navajo County or Navajo County Emergency Management.
Thank you for all your hard work, and I'm praying for all of you.
Thank you. Well, just to let you know, the speakers up here will be up in the main lobby to answer one-on-one questions. One thing to say, okay.
I want to thank the pilots and stuff that flies in there. They're in a very dangerous situation because I'm a pilot myself. And to fly into a cloud of smoke, you lose your instruments, you lose everything. And they are very brave to do what they do. They get updraft, downdraft, and them airplanes are flying at a very low speed. They're at a dangerous speed right in there. They can hit a downdraft, it'll take them right into the ground. I wish to thank them with all my heart for the brave and service that they're doing.
Yeah, we definitely thank everyone that is involved in fighting this fire right now. Again, that is all the time we have. If you have other questions, feel free to meet with our speakers and experts up in the lobby. Thank you for your time.